Hey everyone, it's T-Lore, and today I want to talk to you about getting cargo onto flotillas. So flotillas don't have any rules that say that they can't have cargo on them. They just mostly have the same problem of zero cargo space on them. And they don't really have masts, so they're kind of in a unique situation, but they still do count as ships, and there's nothing that says you can't put cargo on them. So we just have to figure out a way to get around the zero cargo points. And the easiest way to do that is with a cargo master. No surprise there that you can put one of these on any ship. It doesn't take up cargo space, and it gives +1 cargo spaces to everything else in your fleet. So if we were to put this on Minuteman, it wouldn't really do us any good. Yes, it doesn't take up cargo space, but it doesn't get us anything additional onto it. Now, if you had the flotilla in your fleet and didn't really have anywhere else to put a cargo master, this would be a good place to stick one. However, we're going to assume that we just put this cargo master off somewhere else on another ship in our fleet. So now that we've got one cargo on our flotilla, what would you do with that? And I specifically picked Minuteman because of the cargo master, but we're going to look at some things that you could do with that. One thing I would say is you can go ahead and put a World Hater on there, +1 to cannon rolls against any non-American ship or fort. So for 4 points, which is under our 7-point limit, now we've got a lot better cannons. So this has 4 cannons on it. The 4s have 2L range. And if we get +1 on it, that makes them 3s. So that means 50% of the time we're going to hit. And that's a pretty long range to be hitting with. And you'll notice they're both on one side. So you'll be able to really broadside that distance essentially onto one ship. So that's one option. Another option that I really enjoy is putting on equipment. So if we take something like chain shot and put it on our 2L cannon, it would allow us to completely, potentially, disable an opposing ship from a very long distance away. So as long as it's not a 1, the target can't move on her next turn. So that means that if we fire this and we hit the opposing ship, we've essentially ranged them out. So with a 2L range cannon, we can use this on ships that are not in shooting range, and we can hit them with a chain shot to hopefully keep them out of shooting range for an extra turn, or to keep them away from certain targets. Now, it is only a 4, so that's not like a great chance of making that happen. But remember, you have a couple of 2s on here as well. So if these 2s end up being in range, that's still longer range slightly than a regular L range cannon. So we'll keep that in mind. And this is one of the few flotillas that has long range cannons on it. Now you can get crew that make your cannons long range, but they're very limited and pretty much only for the Americans. I think there's one other one, but for our purposes, that's going to be pretty hard to do anything with. Another idea would be to do something like exploding shot, which is a really good solid hit. And something else that we'll explore in just a moment is really helpful when using something like exploding shot. Now, we're using equipment as opposed to specialists, because if you look at like a fire pot specialist or a chain shot specialist, they have you choose a ship within S. So that really negates the benefit that we get from having extended range on our flotillas. These don't have that restriction, so we can fire them at that extended range and use it as a way to zone out our opponents. So if we choose exploding shot, now I did find out that this is actually 3 points instead of 1 point. It's in the official FAQ that's been changed to 3 points now. So if we look at this card, when it's given a shoot action, it can shoot an exploding shot, and when it hits, it will replace one of the target's masts with a fire mast and eliminate a crew. So for one hit, you can do some fire damage, which has a chance to do additional damage over time, as well as eliminating a crew, which on a really big target, that can be a pretty significant hit for hitting once. Now, if it's a 1, you remove exploding shot from the game, which is unfortunate, and eliminate a mast from this ship. That's where this comes in really handy, is that Minuteman doesn't have masts. The flag does not count as a mast. So that means it can't be being replaced by a fire mast, And when you use something like the exploding shot and it backfires on you on that one, you're not going to be losing your flag. You won't have any masts to lose, and the flag won't go anywhere. So that's a really strong benefit that you have by putting this on a flotilla, is that there's really no drawback other than the equipment just goes away. So if you have multiple cargo masters again, then we can put one of these on a couple of different ships in our fleet, like in a larger point game, and get 2 or 3 cargo on our flotilla. And that's when you'd want to start considering something like adding a +1 or a reroller to your Minuteman flotilla, or whatever flotilla you end up using. But again, I'm focusing on the Americans because they're the only ones that have a generic cargo master. So if we look at that and say now we've got something like an exploding shot, and we're going to throw on there a reroller to try and keep out of rolling that one, this becomes a really strong weapons platform with very few drawbacks, other than it has to be towed around. But really, you can just put it on a little tiny fast ship and tow it around very quickly and use it to really zone out some of your opponents. So that's an idea for a strategy. This is definitely a larger point kind of strategy to try and get cargo masters out, because they're 5 points. That's enough points. You can get an entire other ship, and almost, as you can see, an entire other flotilla for that. So this is a larger point game because of how much points it would take to really just get the cargo on there. But you could certainly try and play with that, especially if you've got some slow, large ships that you're trying to kite with this. You can tow it around, use the chain shot to anchor them in place and get out of range again and fire back at them.